God is a God of order. So now that it's just you and him, this is the time for you to get order and structure in your life. Welcome to the third quarter, a podcast dedicated to leaving the past behind and shooting towards a much brighter future. I am your host, Ace, and I am excited to bring to you this pod in particular because we're talking about singleness. Yes, we are. We are talking about singleness, how to maximize your singleness, how to cultivate your identity in your singleness, and how to propel yourself to a place that when that person that's for you, when y'all meet, it's a wrap. All right. So I'm going to have about 3 things I want you to implement in this season and that I really do believe is going to help you. But before we get into all of that, as always, to be a blessing to this podcast, to help it grow, to help it reach more people, I just ask that you do one of these 3 things. Either number 1, if you can leave a kind review, people read them and really they commit to podcasts based on your reviews. The second thing would be if you could rate it 5 stars. So the more 5-star ratings we get, the more the podcast gets pushed out. And also when people are, looking at the podcast, they're trying to see if it's quote unquote verified. So the more ratings we get, the more it looks verified for people so they know they can trust it. And the last thing would be, if you find value in this episode, if you can share it to a loved one, a friend, a family member, or someone that you care about, that would help us out tremendously. I really appreciate your support and thank you so much in advance. So without further ado, let's get into it. Singleness. If you're listening to this right now and you're single, you have come to the right place. If you're listening to this and you're not single, you still have come to the right place because there will be something in this for you. I promise you. But also, if you got some single friends out there that you know this episode could help them, feel free to share it with them. So being single is a very interesting place, all right? When you are not in a relationship, there's a lot of things that come into play, right? Like your mind really plays a big game, especially if you're newly single, if you just got out of a relationship for whatever reason. There's a period of time where there's a lot of discomfort there. Right? Like you're not used to being by yourself. You're not used to having all this time to yourself. You're not used to having your own thoughts. You know what I mean? Like really everything that you do is based on what you want to do. And that's awkward. And if you're someone like me, I'm a relationship person. So I really enjoy being in a relationship. I enjoy having a partnership. That doesn't mean I was always the best partner. It doesn't mean I was always the best boyfriend in the world. I'm a human being, but the spirit of me really loves being in a relationship. That's just me. And I was always somebody throughout my whole life where I was mainly in a relationship or in some type of dynamic where you basically were in some type of something. And the last 3 to 4 years, I've been in a season of singleness, and it's foreign to me. It was foreign to me, and I didn't really know what to do. And when COVID happened and all this other stuff, it kind of expedited my healing process, I guess you can say. But I want to share with you a few things that I learned in a singleness season that I really believe could be of service to you. And the first thing is, when you're single and you're in this season where you have your undivided attention, it is very important that you also give God your undivided attention. Because if you're someone like me, being a people pleaser, being someone that really loves being in a relationship, but I wasn't really clear on who I was, and it's not anything to do with my past partners, but it was about me bringing myself into a relationship with my past partners. I was never secure with me in terms of my identity, who I was, what I stood for, my values, my standards, et cetera, et cetera. So when I was no longer in a relationship and I was by myself, I had all this time to be like in my mess, like my my belief systems, my self-care, like just me every single day. And when you're in a relationship, you can kind of deflect some of that onto someone else, whether it's fair or not, more so not than is. Now I have everything like in my living room. And so when COVID happened and I was completely isolated, I lived by myself, I literally had everything in my home. And one of the biggest things that I really, really started to understand was the importance of letting God in to your relationship, but also more importantly, when you're single, to let him in your singleness. Because the relationship you have with yourself is the most important relationship you will have on this earth. So I have my relationship with God, then it's the relationship with me, and then it's everyone else, right? So when I have my future partner, it'll be God, me, her. And then when we have kids, it's God, me, her, us, the kids. So it's in that order. And so because it's in that order, if I don't have my relationship with God on point, I can't have the relationship with me on point either. And so if my relationship with God is not on point, and then my relationship with me is not on point, it's impossible for me to have a relationship with her that's on point. It's impossible for us to have a relationship that's on point, which means if I were to have kids, it would be impossible for me to have a relationship with them that's on point. So using your season of singleness is the perfect opportunity to get order. God is a God of order. So now that it's just you and him, this is the time for you to get order and structure in your life. And so that was the biggest takeaway for me when I embarked in my season of singleness is I now had his undivided attention, and now he can lead me in the way where whatever growth, whatever healing I needed, I now could pinpoint what I needed to do, where I needed to go, who I needed to bring in, who I needed to take out, all of that stuff, right? So it's important when you're in your season of singleness to make sure that you're letting God in your singleness. Stop trying to figure it out on your own. Stop trying to ask your friends for advice. Stop texting your ex. Stop doing all that. Just use this time to settle down and bring God in. Because the more that you'll do that, even in the midst of the grieving, because this is another thing. This is an aside here. This is off script. When you are leaving a relationship or when a relationship has come to an end, that's a death. I want to be perfectly clear. That is a death. The relationship is deceased. Grieving is not just for when someone passes away. Grieving is for anything in your life that ceases to exist the way that it did. So if you've been in a relationship, I don't care if it's 3 months, 3 years, 30 years. If it comes to an end, there's a grieving period. And the longer that you've had roots in that relationship, meaning the longer the tenure, the deeper the grieving. So as an aside, a part of the singleness season is you have to allow yourself to grieve. One of the first things a lot of us do when we're in a season of singleness is we try to distract ourselves from feeling single. We want to go to our friend's house, we doing this, we doing that, because we don't want to sit in the grieving. You have got to sit in the grieving. When my brother died in 2007, I was resisting to the fact that he was no longer physically here. I was not going to acknowledge that. I was not going to accept that he's no longer physically here. But it wasn't until I allowed myself to grieve his physical passing only then was I able to develop a spiritual relationship with him where I feel closer to him than I've ever felt in my life. But also it gave me a greater capacity to love the people that are around me now. I don't know if this is true or not, but I'm just shooting from the hip here. Of course, I would want my brother to still be here. Like, I want him back. But the pro to him passing away, the thing that I can take from that is that it gave me a greater capacity to love those that are still here. I don't know if I would be doing what I'm doing now if I didn't experience that level of pain, that level of heartbreak. Burying your brother, speaking at his funeral, and like that whole thing. I don't know if I would have the capacity that I have now if I didn't go through that process. So when it comes to relationships coming to an end, there's a grieving period there. And so by allowing God into your singleness, you're allowing him to help you with your grieving while still having peace. Because that's important. It's one thing to be single and be frustrated and be angry and be upset and be confused and be lost, which are all the emotions that should come with that, especially if the tenure was long and if the person is important. You're going to have all those feelings. But it's another thing to be lost, to be angry, to be upset, to be confused, and to be pissed, but have peace. That's a different power. When you can have all those feelings, but still be anchored in foundation of peace. So when you're in your singleness season, you have got to let God into that. Okay? The second thing I want to say is this. This is the perfect opportunity for you to get your shit together. Excuse my French, but you got to get your shit together. This is the perfect opportunity for you to prioritize you because you have your undivided attention. I guarantee you right now, if you're listening to this and you're single, especially if you're newly single, but not limited to, I guarantee you, you cannot honestly say to me that you have been prioritizing your health. I guarantee it. Whether it's physical health, it's mental health, it's self-care, self-love, something. There's a health and wellness thing there that is not where it needs to be. And this is the opportunity for you to reclaim that. When the most important relationship you're going to have on this earth outside of your relationship with God is the relationship with yourself. And in the future, when it is the season for you to start dating and entertaining a potential relationship with someone, you're coming in a more whole version of yourself. Because the worst mistake you can make in any relationship is coming into a partnership looking for the person to make you whole, looking for the person to give you joy and happiness, looking for the person to give you something that only you can give yourself. So while you're in this season, as challenging as it can be, as heartbreaking as it can be, the amount of grieving you're going to have to do, all this time that you now have in your hands, you want to maximize this to the best of your ability. This is the best, or this could be the most detrimental time of your life, because this could be the moment where you reclaim everything about you, you redefine you raise your identity, you know your worth, you know your value, you know your standards, you do the things that you've been putting off, you make yourself priority number one, you get your shit together, you do the things that's filling your cup up, you are becoming a more whole version of yourself. Or it's the flip side. You use this time to do things that's not conducive for you. You use this time to fill voids. You use this time to be around people that are not adding to you. You're not pouring into yourself. You're not taking care of your health and your wellness. You're not getting yourself in order. It could go that way too. But what I'm telling you is it doesn't have to be that way. But what also I'm telling you is that this time has to be intentional. Your season of singleness can be the greatest moment of your life where everything from here on out is redefined. God has your undivided attention. You have your undivided attention. You are now working with the correct pecking order of this system. It's God and then it's you. And then when you start dating and when you're in a relationship, it's God, it's you, and your partner. And then eventually, when you guys have kids and you have a beautiful family, it's God, you, the marriage, then the kids. But if in this singleness season, your order is my friends, work, my ex, like it's the order is all over the place. When it's time for you to get into a relationship or when you do just settle for a relationship, there's going to be so much chaos because you don't have any order, any structure, or any foundation. This is your time to have order, structure, and foundation. This is your time to remove the things that aren't serving you. I'm telling you, when I lost 60 pounds from June of 2023 to June of 2024, the number one thing that I had to make a priority was not focus on what I have to bring into my life. It was focusing on what I had to remove from my life. What ideas, what behaviors, what people, what job opportunities, what was not serving my life in this current season so I can make room for the things that would serve my life this season and not just make room for them, but they have the opportunity to have more impact for me because it has the space to do so. So when you're in your season of singleness, the one of the most important pieces of this is you have to focus on what needs to be removed. I know the relationship is removed. I know you're going through a grieving process, which, it varies from person to person how long that goes on. But there are probably some other things that you brought into your life, things that you've neglected during the relationship that needs to go. What have you brought in that no longer is serving you? What is going to provide unnecessary hurdles and challenges that just don't need to be there? Whatever those things are, I highly, highly, highly suggest and recommend that you do everything in your power to get rid of those things. Get rid of them. It's called addition through subtraction. You subtract the things to make room for what's necessary. This is the moment where you can simplify your life and enjoy. Because I'm telling you, too, the very beginning, I'm going to be honest, the very beginning part of it is going to be challenging because you probably aren't used to putting yourself first. You probably aren't used to having all this abundance of time to do things that are for you. And it feels weird. It feels awkward. It doesn't feel right. But when you get into a groove and you finally have like your thing, you have your rhythm, you have your system, your life is going to be so simple. Like your days are going to look so consistent because this is the time to do that. When you have more control, you want to maximize that to the best of your ability because there's going to come a time when you're going to have someone else in your life and you're going to be sharing more. Your time is going to be shared. Everything is going to be shared. And then there's going to come a time when you're going to have a family and now your time is going to be even more shared. So the more that you're building a foundation with you and you have your priorities set, you have your priorities in order, you have the things that mean the most to you set in stone. When it's time for you to enter a dating life and a potential partnership, when you're bringing things to the table, like you're upfront with, yo, like this is how I live my life. Like this is what I have to have. Because as you're pouring into yourself and you're seeing the value of you change, you're going to start to realize what's important for you to have in your future partner. Because for me, like I cannot have a partner that does not prioritize their health and wellness. That does not mean that they have to have the same training, workout, movement thing that I do, but whatever works for them, health and wellness has to be a center part of their life. It just has to be. I don't want to be in a relationship where, I'm doing my thing every day and she's just like just letting her health go. I don't want to deal with that. This is something that I want to share with my partner. Again, we don't have to go to the gym together. We don't have to have the same belief system in terms of how we move for our respective bodies. But for her life, health and wellness has to be important because it's too important to me. It's too important. So when you're in the singleness season, this is also an opportunity for you to see, what do you really value? Because when you allow the time of grieving and you're cleansing your body of your last relationship and all these things that aren't serving you anymore in this season of your life, what's really valuable to you is going to start to reveal itself a whole lot more. What you really stand for, what you really want to have in your life, the kind of person that you need for you, not just who's the most attractive, who do you enjoy spending the most time with, but who is equally yoked with you? What kind of person does that look like? And that can only really be revealed once you get the clutter out of your life. Once you cleanse yourself of the past, once you cleanse yourself of your behaviors that don't serve you, and once you're kind of on a clean slate and you're doing your thing from a fresh perspective, from a fresh piece of action, from a fresh point of view, then you can start to see more clear. Because when you're first entering a season of singleness, the window is mad blurry. Like, it's hard for you to see outside, right? Because there's just so much stuff on there. But as you start to, Windex here, Windex here, and then you start to see more clear outside. And once you have a more clear vision of what you're doing, what's necessary for you is going to become more obvious to you. Okay? So if you're listening to this right now, or if you're not, send this to someone that is. But if you're listening to this right now and you are single, whether you're newly single, you've been single for a minute, I want you to get this out of anything that I've said over the last 20 minutes. I want you to get this. You are worth every second, every minute, every hour that you care for yourself. We teach people how to treat us based on how we treat ourselves. If you don't spend this time caring for yourself, loving yourself, giving yourself, doing the things that lights you up in this season, you are going to enter a relationship built on dependency. And that is a recipe for disaster. You are going to enter a relationship where you need the other person for you to thrive. You want to come into a relationship for interdependency. Both of y'all don't need each other. Like, you're good, but you want to be together because together you're better. But don't get it twisted. I don't need you, and you don't need me. But we want to be together because life is better together. We don't just add to each other, we multiply each other's lives. The only way that you can get to that place is you have to be that person for yourself first. You want to know how you can get the partner that you want? Be the person that you want to date for you. That person that you want, be that for yourself first. Give that to yourself first. So, as I wrap up this episode, I hope this doesn't discourage you or whatnot, but I really I hope that you understand how important this is. This is an important time. It was a majorly important time. I don't even know if that is grammatically correct. A lot of what I say is not grammatically correct, but it is what it is. It was majorly important for me. Like Aaron had to show Aaron what Aaron needed. Like, put Ace aside. Ace is going to be there. Put Batman aside. We need to give Bruce Wayne some love here. Because if you don't give Bruce Wayne some love, you are always going to overcompensate by being Batman. You're going to spend more time in the Batman suit than you are as your actual human side. So I'm going to spend more time as Ace and less time as Aaron, to the point where Batman is now my identity and Bruce Wayne is the alter ego. That might have went over your head a little bit, but you need to go back to the real you and care for him, care for her. And anything and anyone that is not aiding in that process, they have to go. You have to love yourself so much that you won't let you get in your own way. And when you're in your season of singleness, there is no better time than to do that than when you have your undivided attention. I hope this episode blessed you. I hope it served you. I hope it encouraged you. If someone came to mind, feel free to share this episode to them. I would greatly appreciate it, and I'm sure they would too. If you're on your singleness journey, you're right where you need to be. I know it may seem daunting and overwhelming at times and frustrating, but I promise you, you are right where you need to be. You just might need to look at where you're at differently. I love you so much. Be safe, be blessed, and thank you for listening to the Third Quarter Podcast.